hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. Breaking tonight, there is news across the globe, rising tensions abroad and in our own backyard. Cuba shooting and killing 4 people aboard a U.S. speedboat tonight as America's stealth fighter jets move closer to Iran. And the Trump administration puts the regime on notice over nukes.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they try to rebuild a nuclear weapon, that causes problems for us.
2 big stories in Cuba and Iran tonight. Former Ambassador John Bolton here in moments. Also tonight, the hunt for answers. A fleet of black SUVs seen at Nancy Guthrie's home, entering and leaving 25 days after she vanished. Brian Enton with us on what he witnessed. Plus, she was in the hot seat today. She wants to be the nation's top doctor, but she also once warned about trusting your doctor. How Casey Means today tried to convince senators that she's fit to be the next Surgeon General.
My deep hope is to be a unifying, practical messenger that brings people together around issues that I think every family cares about.
And an AI arsenal. The Pentagon now threatening a top firm. Loosen the guardrails or lose the contract. We'll take you inside the battle that could define America's next war. But first tonight, firepower on the move across the Middle East. A dozen of those things right there, those F-22 stealth fighter jets, touching down closer to Iran, joining 2 aircraft carrier strike groups that are already positioned in the region. And tonight, satellite imagery shows an empty harbor. This is in Bahrain, where the U.S. Military's 5th Fleet had been docked. You see the scene there now. It's empty. That's in the Persian Gulf, the waters off the Iranian coast. It is hard to overstate tonight just how massive this buildup is. America hasn't seen anything like this in the region since the invasion of Iraq back in 2003. And all of this, as the commander-in-chief says, he prefers a diplomatic solution. But we also heard him lay out the case for potential action.
Some terrible people. They've already developed missiles that can threaten Europe and our bases overseas, and they're working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States of America.
Meanwhile, major questions tonight about a different regime. Several people on a speedboat registered in the state of Florida were shot and killed after being intercepted in Cuban waters. Lawmakers across Florida tonight are calling for Cuba to be held accountable. We just heard from the Secretary of State, just heard from the Vice President as well, former National Security Advisor John Bolton with me here in moments. But first, we begin with our Libby Dean at the White House. And Libby, we just heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio about this incident off the coast of Cuba. And it seems like the U.S. government is still searching for a lot of answers tonight.
Yeah, a lot of answers. And the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, Blake, he seems to know what we know at this point, and that is the information we're getting from the Cuban embassy here in the U.S., that this was a Florida-registered boat. 4 people were killed, 6 injured after they claimed that those aboard that Florida-registered speedboat opened fire before the Cuban authorities got there. Also, the commander on that boat also injured as well. So the secretary not having a lot of answers, saying that the embassy in Havana is working on this. They are not going to take the Cuban authorities forward on this. Let's take a listen to the secretary.
Suffice it to say, it is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that. It's not something that happens every day. It's something, frankly, that hasn't happened with Cuba in a very long time.
So this source in Florida also tells me the boat is registered to a Cuban man, and we have the name. But at this point, they can't confirm if that person that this boat is registered to, if they were on board. Also, this source cautioning that they have not notified next of kin here. Key here is the New York Times is reporting this was a flotilla, a boat that was going to rescue relatives off the coast, or rather from Cuba. That's going to be the key details we're waiting to learn. But we know that the vice president read in here, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. I just spoke with a White House official, Blake. We don't know if the president has been briefed on this yet. They're deferring to the secretary's comments.
All right. Our Libby Dean live tonight with the news there from the North Lawn. Libby, thank you. Joining me now, former Ambassador John Bolton, former National Security Advisor in the first Trump administration. Mr. Ambassador, thanks for being with us tonight. Highly unusual, as the Secretary of State described it, and it is indeed. We haven't really focused much on Cuba recently, but we have, given sort of the language coming out of Florida and out of the administration about possibly that regime falling at some point here later this year. Given what we are hearing tonight with what potentially happened off the coast there, what do you think could come next?
Well, until we know more specifics, hard to say. But I tell you one thing that's absolutely eerie is that this attack on the boat comes 30 years almost to the day after the Cuban government shot down an airplane flown by a Cuban-American group called Brothers to the Rescue, which was set up to rescue Cuban refugees trying to make it across the 90 miles from Cuba to Florida. So whether this boat and this flotilla, as the New York Times called it, was part of a seaborne Brothers to the Rescue effort or not, whether there are people who are looking at the desperate conditions of the Cuban economy as oil was cut off from Venezuela trying to get out, we don't know. But I will tell you one other thing that's absolutely stunning, if it's true, a terrible mistake by the United States government. Apparently, the Treasury Department is announcing that sales to quote-unquote private sector Cuban companies, sales of oil to these companies would be permissible. Let's be clear. There's no private sector in Cuba that's buying oil unless it's doing it at the behest of the Cuban government. So opening up a loophole for the Cuban government, I think, raises questions about whether we're giving them a lifeline or not. So there's a lot that's going on here that's very unclear.
I asked you what comes next in Cuba. Let me turn your attention to Iran, a different part of the world and a much different story there, because we're seeing the Fifth Fleet now out at sea. Carriers are positioned southeast of Iran and off the coast of Israel as well. Those fighter jets on the move that I discussed. And here was the commander-in-chief last night, and then we'll pick it up on the other side.
They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon.
So that's part of the picture tonight, Ambassador Bolton. What do you think comes next there?
Well, the president's just wrong, and that always makes me worried, because the Iranians use the secret words all the time. They deny that they're building nuclear weapons. They deny they're seeking nuclear weapons, when, of course, we have plenty of evidence that says that's exactly what they're doing, and they've been doing it for 30 years. I think the Iranian government is very worried about what may come next. They're liable to say almost anything tomorrow in Geneva to try and buy more time to avoid a military strike. I think this is an absolute waste of oxygen, this whole Geneva exercise.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is it even worth sending the team there, given what we've seen over the last, I don't know, 15 years or so?
Let's say 30 years. No, I don't think so at all. And but you know, the president has a range of things on his mind, including vindicating the red line that he drew at the time of the demonstrations in Iran last month, when the regime ignored his warnings, kept killing its own people. He said help is on the way, and help hasn't arrived yet. So that's one consideration. There are a range of other things, up to and including regime change, that he should be thinking about.
Do you think this is when, not if, on a strike, or are you not there yet?
Look, with Donald Trump, he has ordered strikes and then called them off after they've already been launched. So I don't think there's any necessary reason to believe it's going to be big, little, or anything in between. With Trump, you never know. I'm not sure he's made a decision by this point.
All right, Ambassador John Bolton reacting to the news in Iran. And thank you for the perspective there with the breaking news on Cuba as well. We'll talk again soon. Ambassador John Bolton with us tonight. Meantime, heated pushback from both sides of the aisle today back here at home on the president's nominee for Surgeon General, the nation's top spokesperson for your health.
Are you going to deprioritize having an active license in the same way that you believe that you can do the job of a Surgeon General without having an active license?
Because how dare they look at a healthcare system that is broken and unaffordable and try to make changes, but yet the definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing, expecting different results, so we should just sit here and accept it?
Just part of the back and forth involving Casey Means and her testimony today, as topics from vaccine to psychedelics and all things in between discussed, including scrutiny over her credentials Means is part of the MAHA movement with an inactive medical license. She's also known as a health influencer, a whole big following across social media. Joining us now, Republican Senator of Kansas, Roger Marshall, at today's hearing. The senator is a doctor by trade, as I always mention, an OBGYN. With us tonight here on the Hill. Doctor, Senator, nice to see you. So she's also Casey Means is also a best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author. There's a chapter in her book, Trust Yourself, Not Your Doctor. You're a doctor. As a doctor, why do you trust her as potentially the next Surgeon General?
Well, I think there's a lot of red herrings out here, but regardless, she's going to be a great Surgeon General. That, like me, she's concerned that 8 out of 10 Americans have a chronic disease, that 1 out of 3 of our adolescents have prediabetes as well. I think what she's saying is that maybe that we need to be focused on up front preventing all these health problems. I believe in the sanctity of the patient-physician relationship, but again, she wants to focus on making America healthy. We are a very sick nation right now. I think maybe you're taking it a little bit out of context, but I think she's trying to say, look, it's okay to ask questions.
I mean, it was a chapter in her book.
What should my children be taking? Okay. Yeah, I did read the book. It's been over a year ago as well. But I think she's trying to just encourage people to ask the questions, that science is never settled. And we should be asking the question, why did my grandfather get Alzheimer's disease? Why do we think that these ultra-processed foods have led to metabolic inflammation that leads to autoimmune diseases and leads to Alzheimer's, those types of things?
Here was Casey Means. There was a conversation today on psilocybins, which, as you know, are magic mushrooms. And part of her position there, this was with a back and forth with Senator Susan Collins. Then we'll pick it up on the other side.
What I would say as a private citizen is in many cases different than what I would say as a public health official. Joining a team where the purpose of this role is to communicate, but to be very clear, under no circumstances would I recommend that to the American people in this role are illicit drug use.
Should there be a pro-psilocybin Surgeon General, Doctor?
I don't think that she will be. I don't think that's going to be her focus at all. I think her focus is going to be on a healthy, nutritious diet, getting away from ultra-processed foods and high-carbohydrate diets. I think she's going to be focused on making America healthy again. Look, no way would I support people taking these psychedelics. I think it's not part of my practice. It's nothing that I could recommend. But I think that that's a red herring again. Let's focus on the fact that she's a great communicator, that she has a great following, that she is leading this Make America Healthy Again fad that's going on out there, that there are hundreds of thousands of people that support her, and she can help to lead the way back to a healthier America.
All right, let me ask you about Medicaid, because we heard, Senator, from the Vice President today. He was out on the road with Dr. Oz as well, and part of the news there is a temporary halt to some Medicaid funding over fraud concerns in the state of Minnesota. Here was Vice President Vance.
We have decided to temporarily halt certain amounts of Medicaid funding that are going to the state of Minnesota in order to ensure that the state of Minnesota takes its obligations seriously to be good stewards of the American people's tax money.
Obviously, we know that there's a massive amount of money in play potentially there in Minnesota. But here was a headline in your home state of Kansas there about $798,000 of potential fraud with Medicaid there. It leads to the question, where do you draw the line on this issue, Senator?
Well, I think number one is always to be compassionate, always trying to do the right thing. I hope that this is a very short pause. Medicaid is something that I have fought for. Republicans in our working family tax cuts actually increase funding for Medicaid. We want to make sure that it's prioritized for those who need it the most. That would be senior citizens and people with disabilities, moms with young children at home as well. So where to draw the line? I think that Americans want us to be frugal with their money. We want them to do the right thing. So I hope this is a very short, temporary situation in Minnesota.
All right, we'll leave it there. Doctor, Senator Roger Marshall, Kansas, with us once again here on the Hill. Thank you, sir. By the way, there have been, when you think about Surgeons General, 21 in U.S. history, but only 2 have actually been surgeons by trade. Go all the way back to 1871. All right, major movement tonight in the Nancy Guthrie search. Our Brian Enton on the scene, what he saw in Tucson today. Is there possible change involving the team there on the ground? Brian with us when we return. I'm Blake Burman. See you on the other side in 4 minutes. 4:19 out in Tucson, Arizona this evening, and we saw a flurry of activity there in the search for Nancy Guthrie. Our team in the field there, Brian Enton and his crew, outside of Nancy Guthrie's home, seeing a bunch of people enter. We also witnessed a vehicle leave as well. Of course, this just one day after Nancy's daughter, Savannah Guthrie, announced the family would offer a reward of up to $1 million for information leading to 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. Our Brian Enton back with us once again. Tucson, Brian, this was unusual given, at least in the most recent days, because we saw a lot of folks go in, a vehicle come out. Do we have any sense of what you saw?
Yeah, and the timing is interesting because, you know, just one day after Savannah Guthrie put up the $1 million reward. But there was a lot of activity. We saw several dark tinted FBI SUVs. That's one that you see right there pull into the property. One actually pulled into the garage, which was very interesting. And they lowered the garage door so we couldn't see who was getting out of it. And they were here for about an hour, then put the garage door back up and left. We also saw, I know there was at least one Pima County homicide detective here, FBI agents. They walked around the outside of the house, the perimeter of the house, and then they were inside the house for about an hour. We could see through the windows as they were looking in each room. You can see them outside there kind of walking along the perimeter near the garage. Some of them were very dressed up, which was something I haven't seen, like in suits, which led some to question whether they could be prosecutors. We don't know. But I think what stood out to me the most, Blake, was the SUV with the very dark tinted windows going into the garage and them closing the garage door. There's a lot of speculation. Could it have been someone from the Guthrie family who wanted to, you know, see the inside of the house right now? We tried to look when the cars went by, which you can see here, and they kind of came out in a convoy and just kind of sped off, but we couldn't see through the windows to see who it was.
This was the most activity since when, Brian?
For at least a week. I mean, we've seen a couple of people come and go, but never like a full. I mean, there was a good, you know, probably 10 or 11 people here today that were clearly up to something because, again, walking outside the house and then also going inside the house.
I know you're calling folks, texting folks, trying to figure out. You mentioned the suits suggesting maybe, just maybe, who knows, that could be prosecutors. Any other ideas? I mean, you've been there for more than 3 weeks now. Do you have any other educated guesses without it being pure speculation of what you think this could have involved? I don't want you to speculate, obviously.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I just remember when I covered Brian Koberger and I was outside that house for months, they would come back periodically, you know, if they needed to see something else in the house, check on a theory, you know, flush out a tip, take additional photographs. So I don't think it's that unusual that law enforcement is coming back. Actually, I think that's relatively normal. Again, what I'm sort of stuck on is I haven't ever seen them. They clearly didn't want us to see who was getting out of that one car. And it was very obvious. That's why they pulled into the garage. We watched. Nobody got out of the car until the door was lowered. So that's the part I'm kind of more curious about. And I was thinking, I mean, if I was Savannah Guthrie or one of the family members, if this was my mom, and she grew up in this house. I mean, her mom's lived here since the 70s. Yeah. You know, you'd think you'd want to probably come back to the house at some point and see it for yourself. So I suspect that may be what happened here.
All right, our Brian Enton for us once again, Tucson, Arizona tonight, taking those images alongside his team there. Brian, thank you. Well, a sweeping raid targeting a superintendent of one of America's largest school systems. We are live from Los Angeles on the other side of the break. What happened there that brought in the feds plus AI? It helped capture Nicolas Maduro. And now the Pentagon is demanding full control over it. Why the company's saying not so fast. And the president takes his messaging out on the road, part of a campaign blitz ahead of the midterms.
Our country is winning again. In fact, we're winning so much that we really don't know what to do about it.
Chris Steyerwalt with me on what the president will say as we head into the newsroom for our top stories here at the bottom of the hour. I'll see you then. Bottom of the hour, some of the top stories that we're following tonight into our newsroom as it's 6:30 off the coast of Florida, where 4 people are dead after a firefight, a gunfight between a Florida-registered speedboat, or at least those on board, and Cuban border guard troops. The Florida-registered boat, a civilian vessel. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, saying just a little while ago that they're trying to figure out what happened.
But we're going to find out exactly what happened here, and then we'll respond accordingly.
Members of Congress, the Florida delegation, already calling for a full investigation. It's happening as the White House looks ahead to tomorrow's nuclear talks elsewhere, a different region, with Iran, an armada of U.S. military might waiting off that country's coast in case a deal cannot be reached. Of course, we continue to keep our eyes across the globe to developing stories at this hour. Meantime, back here at home from our affiliate, Pix 11 in New York City, the mayor there, Zohran Mamdani, at odds with the New York Police Department after this scene right here. Police officers, as you can see there, pelted with snowballs, sending two to the hospital with injuries. The mayor downplaying the incident, blaming it on kids.
I've said time and time again that having seen these videos, to me it was a snowball fight that got out of hand, and it should be treated accordingly.
Different story, though, from the NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, who now says a criminal investigation is underway. Well, some scary new video out of Omaha, Nebraska. This comes from our partners at The Hill. Have you seen this? A sinkhole swallowing two cars, just sitting there waiting at a traffic light. You can see the road collapsing underneath those vehicles. Police there in Omaha say a water main break likely caused that sinkhole. A bunch of good Samaritans there ended up rushing in and helping the folks to get out. And thankfully here, somehow, no one inside those vehicles were hurt. We are now learning whose medical emergency prompted that SpaceX Crew 11 mission to return home early last month. NASA now releasing a statement today on behalf of astronaut Mike Fink, who suffered a medical emergency aboard the International Space Station. Fink saying, quote, "I experienced a medical event that required immediate attention from my incredible crewmates. Thanks to their quick response and the guidance of our NASA flight surgeons, my status quickly stabilized." Now, NASA determined it was the best course of action to evacuate the crew, get them back here to Earth, since advanced medical imaging is not available, as you might imagine, on the International Space Station. The exact nature of the medical event still unclear. The good news here, Fink says he's doing well, now continuing his recovery in Houston, Texas. Well, out in Los Angeles tonight, there is a major story that our affiliate KTLA is following, and it involves an FBI raid at the home of the superintendent of the nation's second largest school district. The FBI now confirming they searched the home of Alberto Carvalho. He's the superintendent of the Los Angeles Unified School District, but officials not saying exactly what is behind all of this. It's the top story out on the West Coast tonight. We turn it over to our KTLA affiliate, Kimberly Chang in LA with the latest. Alberto Carvalho, excuse me, Kimberly, been in the education business for quite some time, and now there is a big search involving him.
Absolutely. First in Florida, then here in Los Angeles since 2022. We're standing in front of the district headquarters here in Los Angeles. It's been hours now and no sign of the superintendent. The district also remaining tight-lipped about his whereabouts and also what brought the feds out here in the first place. But we do know they raided his office here at district headquarters and his home in San Pedro. And we have video of that. Take a look. You can see FBI agents in front of his home, the LA Unified School District Superintendent Alberto Carvalho. Both the FBI and the Department of Justice confirmed that agents executed search warrants, but have not said what the allegations are against him, and said they can't release further information because the affidavit for that warrant was sealed by the court. Now, sources told the LA Times, however, that the federal investigation specifically involves Carvalho and not the district. And sources say that the probe is related to a failed AI company, AllHere, which developed an AI chatbot for LAUSD years ago. Its founder was charged with fraud back in 2024, and it's not clear what Carvalho's alleged connection is. Federal authorities also searched a residence believed to be associated with Carvalho in Florida, and the Times reported that the property is also linked to an individual who worked with AllHere. Now, Carvalho, as I mentioned, worked in Florida for years. He previously led Miami-Dade County Public Schools before moving to Los Angeles to become superintendent of LAUSD. back in 2022. Now, LAUSD again remaining tight-lipped. A spokesperson did say they are cooperating with this investigation, but can't release any further details. Live in downtown, I'm Kimberly Chang. Blake, back to you.
Kimberly Chang, KTLA, out there in Southern California tonight. Kimberly, thank you. Well, in last night's State of the Union address, President Trump pointed fingers at the other side of the aisle as the problem for voters, as he sees it. And in the Democratic rebuttal, the Virginia governor, Abigail Spanberger, followed suit.
Stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up.
So I'll ask again. Is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? We all know the answer is no.
So is that going to be the messaging that you are going to hear for the next 9 months or so up until November? Chris Steyerwalt, host of The Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. My brother with me here now. Hello, sir.
Sure.
I thought that was the story of the night. Donald Trump basically laying out, in his words, those people are crazy. Mm-hmm. And that was part of the argument that he made. To whereas Abigail Spanberger asked a few questions. Is he working for you? Is he making life affordable for you? Is he making the world safer for you? And to me, I thought that that's sort of the two paths that you're going to see from both sides of the aisle going forward.
Imagine a president of the United States telling the members of Congress to stand up when he tells them to stand up. Thomas Jefferson, call your office. Like, it's a wild, it was a great representation of how broken our separation of powers is, that the big gag for the Republicans of the evening was that the president was going to tell, I say jump,
right?
You say how high? Right. What do you tell us when to stand up and you tell us when to sit down? And he knew that Democrats couldn't stand up when he commanded them to stand up. And then the Republicans, I think Stephen Miller said that it would be remembered for 1,000 years that the Democratic members of Congress didn't jump to their feet when Donald Trump told them to. And it's not that way.
Is that going to be the messaging, though, going forward for him? Part of it?
I think the messaging going forward for him is everything is awesome. Right. Okay. The messaging that we heard last night, look, that speech worked. That speech achieved we talked before the speech about what are the goals. Right. Goal number one is get the Republicans back in order, right? Because the tariffs on Epstein, on a list of things, and that will continue to happen. But this was get the band back together and remind them of the good times, remind them of what it was like. And it did that. And the best way to do that with Republicans is to say, don't we hate these remember how much we hate these bad people. And I think his message on the trail and everything else is, everything is awesome, and you're going to win so much you'll get tired of winning.
So did Spanberger lay it out for Democrats then? Because the questions were, is he working for you? Is he making life more affordable for you? Is he making the world that, abroad, here at home, safer for you? Those were essentially the questions that were pledged for the first time in quite some time, Chris, in which there was a focus on Democrats.
Well, sure, and Spanberger's a great illustration of the difficulty of Democrats right now. She's having a heck of a time in Richmond, keeping the Democratic base from tipping over their recent victory. So they have this big win, and they win because Spanberger stays on that very same message that you heard, sounded normal, and kudos to her for being patriotic. Kudos to her for embracing 250. Kudos to her for citing George Washington. All things that a Democratic Party of 4 years ago might not have been okay with doing. Meanwhile, back at the State House in Richmond, her fellow Democrats are going hog wild, right? Yep. They want to do it all.
So tax everything to anything and everything.
And tax everything and all of their pent up anger after all the years of 4 years of Glenn Youngkin's administration, and they want to shoot for the stars. So that's the problem Democrats have. They want to present a calm, viable alternative that's focused on those things, but a lot in the Democratic base don't want those things. They want to get rowdy.
I don't know that there's a comp, but the closest thing to it is 2018, right? When Trump was was the president. There was a midterm. That's where we are right now. He went to, and you can see it, let's show the map, more than 22 different states, basically half the country, Chris. Red states, blue states, purple states, swing states, non-swing states, in the South, you name it. He basically went there. We know that he's been to 4 states so far. He's going to Corpus Christi, Texas on Friday. What do you think? And J.D. Vance going to Wisconsin on Thursday. What do you expect from Trump going forward now that we're past the State of the Union, sprint to November?
So in Texas, they got some stuff cooking up down in Texas, right? So they've got this congressman who is under a lot of pressure to resign because of this sex scandal. They've got a goat rodeo of a primary in their Senate race. The Republicans and the Democrats are on a race to the bottom to see who could lose a U.S. Senate race in Texas faster. But note when the president is going. He is not going to Texas before the primary to pick a winner in the race between John Cornyn and Ken Paxton and the congressman whose name is escaping me right now, but I'm sure is Wesley Hunt, who I'm sure is a delightful person. He's waiting until that bomb goes off and they're in the runoff, and maybe he'll endorse somebody for the runoff when he gets down there.
Chris Steyerwalt, thank you, sir. I'll catch you Friday.
Oh, let's do that.
You'll be here for it.
I like it.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. By the way, as we gear up for the midterms, the RNC has about a $95 million in cash, while the DNC holds about $14 million per filings. One of the big themes, one of the big stories going right now, and this normally happens, right, when you have the president in control, you got more money, and that's one of the things that...
If donors think Democrats are going to win, the Democrats' number will go up because people bet the winner.
All right. Still to come. Have you heard about this? An AI company refusing to give the Pentagon full control, full access of its technology, raising questions about how far you want AI helping your troops. Maybe you want it to help them to the moon and back. What the government is now warning to that company when we return.
Stephen A. is here with Big Bill.
3 straight talkers.
Well, number one, you make a good point, Cuomo.
Bill, I don't give you credit for much. I'll give you credit for that. And you'll only see them together on Cuomo. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central, only on News Nation.
Tick, tick, tick. The clock is going in a massive standoff between the Pentagon and the AI giant Anthropic. The Pentagon says the company has a Friday afternoon deadline to back off demands it has for the U.S. military, or face severe consequences. This is the Wall Street Journal reports that Anthropic's main product, Claude, was used in the military operation. That one right there to capture the Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. Anthropic has 2 big concerns over the use of AI with the Pentagon: weapons without human oversight, and the use possibly of AI to conduct mass surveillance over American citizens. The debate sparking questions about the role that the AI intelligence companies will play in the wars of the future. Joining me now, Navy veteran, senior fellow at Georgetown Center for Security and Emerging Technology, Amelia Probasco, with us tonight. Amelia, this is a big showdown. You know, we talk about Republicans and Democrats last night at the State of the Union. You had Pete Hegseth and the CEO of Anthropic also yesterday trying to figure this one out. How consequential is it? Because you got one of the biggest players and the Pentagon going like this right now.
Yeah, thanks, Blake. And I think you put it just right. These are 2 really big players, and they're both incredibly important for national security. These tools, Claude, has already been deployed on our classified networks. There are operators using it today to try and make the best military decision that they can make. And so the stakes are pretty high that these 2 can come to some kind of an agreement that will keep our warfighters with cutting-edge technologies to make the best possible decisions.
I mean, there was the reporting out there, Amelia, about how it was involved in the Venezuela operation, and I don't think that should be any surprise. Like, think about this, it's almost like saying the internet was involved in that operation as well, right, at this point. We know what the internet can do, though. What can Claude or any of these AI technologies do? Because you also have, you know, OpenAI and Grok involved with the military as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about how generative AI models like ChatGPT or Claude or Grok can be used by the military. There is no big autonomous Terminator weapon. The military simply is not comfortable with that kind of application. Instead, what they're trying to do is use these tools to sort through vast amounts of information that they're trying to sift through to find potential threats and then to identify potential responses. All of that work has been done in the past with a bunch of humans. Those humans do make errors. They try very hard not to, but they will make errors, and it takes a very long time. These new tools can help them make decisions better, sometimes faster. And so that's really what we're trying to achieve. But it's not some sort of button that you push and then all of a sudden the war is done. This is a much more controlled process that the military is very directive in how they apply the tools.
You know, one of the things that an analogy that I think about is, as basically Anthropic is saying, maybe you can do this, but not that, would be like if any of the internet companies said, we don't like those boat strikes out in the Caribbean, you can't use our internet. Is that kind of where we are right now with a massive company trying to negotiate with the U.S. government? You can use our stuff for this, but not that? And sort of what questions does that raise?
Yeah, this is a hard question because a lot of tech companies have been thrust into the middle of conflict in a way that is very new. I mean, I think actually the conflict to look at is in Ukraine, and the number of tech companies that decided to take a stand in ways that, frankly, the Russians declared as being making them combatants. So this is a pretty tricky question that all of these new tech companies are dealing with. And I think in trying to navigate them, the companies are both trying to help national security. I mean, I think it's a very good sign that we had at least a respectful conversation, as I understand it, on Tuesday. But they're also trying to voice some concerns about what they know about their tech and their concerns about how it might be misused while still working to support national security.
There's about 62,000 AI startups worldwide. Emily, as you know, about half of them, 30,000 here in the U.S. When you think about all the issues going, Amelia, excuse me, when you think about all the issues going forward on this topic, Amelia Probasco knows it inside and out. I have no doubt we'll be talking again. Thanks, Amelia. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, still to come. Championship soccer meets drone defense. Kansas City getting millions to lock down this summer's World Cup. We're asking the mayor there, how does that square with safety? Criticism from within his own party. He's the mayor there in the Midwest. With us live on the other side.
I got the Olympics and I got the 2026 FIFA World Cup. So we have the World Cup and the Olympics coming, and that is exciting news.
All right, so in his State of the Union address last night, President Trump there bragging about two of the biggest sporting events you'll ever see coming to the good old U.S. of A. The U.S. set to host hundreds of the world's best athletes at the 2028 Olympic Games. The main hub there for that is Los Angeles. But this summer, we are just months away from the FIFA World Cup, and 11 American cities will host World Cup soccer games. You can see the map there. It's going to mean thousands of visitors from all across the globe, really millions potentially. And look at that map. One thing stands out there, does it not? Middle of America. Kansas City going to be in the middle of all the action there. The mayor there is Quentin Lucas with us tonight here on the Hill. So look, Mr. Mayor, first off, thanks for being here. Nice to see you. We heard the president last night, a big political speech, obviously. But he was bragging there on we're going to get the World Cup, we're going to get the Olympics, World Cup coming to your backyard. What does it mean?
You know, I think, first of all, the most exciting part of the speech where I saw the most unity was sports.
Yeah,
U.S.
hockey players.
Yeah, the hockey players, you had the World Cup, the LA Olympics. You saw a Democratic congressman stand up for that. I think this is what unifies America. And so in Kansas City, we are excited to be hosting. We expect hundreds of thousands of fans. We have base camps from Argentina, England, the Netherlands, Algeria, matches from lots of other countries. And I think we're excited to show American and frankly, middle American hospitality to a lot of folks who get to see what America is really all about when they come here and make a good visit.
You got some big federal money coming your way as well, $59 million, which actually came from the One Big Beautiful Bill, which was the Republican initiative, $80 million in total. What do you do with it?
I think the first thing we do is we make sure that we have fully funded law enforcement to be prepared for what is a very major event. Obviously, we want people to have fun. We also recognize that there are some people who may challenge events like this one. So that is where a lot of that money is going. Homeland Security, frankly, collaboration. The story of how law enforcement really works in America is every day. Your local police department often works with FBI and other agencies, and that's what we're doing this summer.
What is that collaboration like? Because there's obviously a big national conversation elsewhere, right, on the collaboration that does or does not happen, depending on where you are in America and who your leaders are between the state and local level. But I hear from you, you're embracing it wholeheartedly.
We have done that for years. And if you think about your everyday policing, and that's what I try to focus on, I let all of you in Washington have the more complex conversations. Here in Kansas City.
we try to speak person to person here on the Hill. Let Washington do the Washington thing. We don't do that here, sir.
Absolutely. We try to get basics done, right? You want to make sure you have enough people who have drones in the air investigating what can happen. Fighting human trafficking, drug trafficking, some of these issues that frankly are happening well before the World Cup, where criminal elements are getting ready to, in some ways, intervene in the quality of our games, public safety here. We want to make sure we're prepared, and our federal partners are a key part of that. These games will be in 11 U.S. markets, and so we will work collaboratively with all of them to make sure that we're making sure Americans and our visitors are safe.
Quinton Lucas is the mayor there in Kansas City with us tonight with his perspective. You're going to be busy, sir. It's going to be a busy summer for you out there. We appreciate the time. Thanks for hopping on with us tonight.
Hey, thank you.
Of course. Good luck out there. By the way, when you think about the World Cup and the reach and all of that, consider this. The 2022 World Cup final in Qatar reached an estimated 1.5 billion viewers all across the globe. We know the Super Bowl is basically the biggest thing we do here in this country, one of them at least. It had 129 million. So a little bit of a viewership comparison there. The eyes of the world on the U.S. this summer. I thank you so much for watching us tonight here on The Hill. I'm Blake Burman. Hope you have a great one. I send it over to Elizabeth Vargas, who takes it from here.